Well, good afternoon. My name is Ben Gates, and I direct campus ministry here at IPFW and also at Indiana Tech. It's our pleasure to introduce you to the third installment of the Campus Ministry Business Forum here on the campus of IPFW in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is a series where we bring a successful entrepreneur, CEO from the region to campus to have a conversation over lunch with students, generally from the business school. We co-sponsor this with the Dormer School of Business here on campus, but it's open to students across campus, hoping to have lively conversation, great questions, and information that will not only benefit the students, but benefit you as you watch today. This is the third installment for the 2017-2018 academic year, and today we feature our guest is Donovan Coley. Donovan is the Executive Director of the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, and he's going to speak today about the specific and exciting challenges and opportunities for not-for-profit companies in this economy, in this region. We're hoping for a great presentation, great time for the students, and I'm glad you could join us today. Enjoy the presentation. I'll turn it over now to Donovan.
Well, thank you so much for being here. It's really an honor for me to represent the Rescue Mission and to share with IPFW, what God is doing through a nonprofit. My name is Donovan Coley. I'm originally from Kingston, Jamaica. I came to America in 1982, August 20th, 1982. And when I was picked up from the Bearfield Airport, that was the name of it before it's now the Fort Wayne International Airport, the first voice I heard on the radio was the executive director of the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission talking about what was happening downtown. And so I was intrigued by what he was saying, because just prior to that in Jamaica, I was working in a particular area on a dump heap where kids were fighting to get food out of the dumps along with pigs in a place called Riverton City. And so knowing that there was a rescue mission in Fort Wayne, I got pretty excited and I wanted to be a part of what was happening downtown. But I came to the rescue mission officially March 17th, 2008. I was on the board prior to that. So 2006, I was on the board and I was invited to serve as a pastor and to bring a spiritual sense to the board and give them some spiritual direction. To my surprise, they were looking for an executive director or a CEO, and I was not interested in doing that. I was busy doing parish ministry as well as leading a real estate firm. And so I supplemented my income by being manager at Century 21 Bradley, one of the large firms here in Fort Wayne. And so 2 years after a stint on the board asked me to consider being the CEO. And so March 17, St. Patrick's Day 2008, I came on board as the CEO. At that particular time, we had 32 staff and a budget of $1.2 million. And I asked the board one simple question. I said, would you give me the freedom to redefine the nonprofit experience and possibly to move the rescue mission back to its mission, back to its core, back to focusing on why we were in existence? And so we've been in existence since 1903, and we had become an organization where the emphasis seemed to have been 3 hots and a cot. We were providing 3 meals, we were providing shelter, and I believe that somehow we were warehousing the homeless, and I felt we really needed to address the root causes of homelessness. So we started this incredible process with a strong board of trustees and our staff. And over the first 3 years, we said goodbye to the vast majority of our staff. And we brought on individuals who had a commitment to doing no harm, to make sure that we were addressing the issues that would cause individuals to become homeless. We concluded that there were 3 main issues. We always heard about affordable housing, lack of affordable housing. But as far as the rescue mission was concerned, we wanted to address 3 things that we discovered pretty quickly: the issue of trauma, the issue of addictions, and mental illness. And so we wanted to do more than just provide the meals and provide the shelter. And so we brought on mental health experts on our staff. We brought on folks who had their MSWs, Masters in Social Work. They were licensed clinical social workers. We also needed to do some work in the area of finances, so we formalized our development process. Our budget was $1.2 million. Today, we have a budget of $6.1 million, so we formalized the development process as well. We gutted our board, and we did some serious work on board development. We received a grant from Fullinger Foundation, an Inspire grant, and we were able to take some board members and some staff to New York, and we visited the world's largest shelter. We came back to Fort Wayne, and we knew that we wanted to be best in class, and so we implemented a lot of things that we learned from New York as well as other shelters across the country. And so our board of trustees got to a point where one of our board members, Ima Jean, received the Carl D. Rolfson Award for board excellence. And when it comes to finances, the Better Business Bureau gave us the Torch Award, for how we do business. So we gutted the organization. We also did rebranding. And we were known as Rescue Ministries back then. We're now the Rescue Mission. Now, come to think of it, there are 330 other rescue missions throughout the country. But in Fort Wayne, we had the audacity to call ourselves the Rescue Mission. And we were smart enough to also get therescuemission.net and to get those domain names which would reflect what we wanted to call ourselves. So we did our rebranding, we did board redevelopment, we looked at the financials, the development piece. And today, I believe we have what is called a national program. We have compared what we do in Fort Wayne with a lot of what's happening across the country. And we have redefined even the experience for the homeless. When we started, when our team, I'm going to call this our 10-year team, when our team started 10 years ago, men would come to our shelter and they were given 30 days. They would then stay for 30 days, but it would appear as if they were reading the same script that another shelter across town was also reading. And so they also gave their guys 30 days. So you can just imagine they would come to us for 30 days and then they would leave and then they would go across town to another shelter and then they come back to us. What we did, we changed it. We're going to give you 4 days and we want you to come up with an exit strategy. And so we want you to meet with a case manager or a residential care staff, and we're going to put together a rehabilitation plan, a recovery plan for you. We also changed it in another way where you don't have to leave at 7:30 in the morning. In shelters across the country, when you stay the night, you then have to leave at 7:30, and then we see you again at 5:45 or 6 o'clock where you do your breathalyzer and you get your bed. At the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, we say, you stay with us and you immediately will be given the opportunity to enter a recovery program. We now have a clinic run by one of the leading health systems in our community. And so we have had over 4,000 touches just in our little clinic where we have 2 registered nurses. So we will do a medical assessment, we will do a mental health assessment, we will do a vocational assessment, and we're going to give you all the tools that you need. So we will empower you to gain control of your life. And so at the Rescue Mission, you don't have to come and leave. You stay and you are empowered. We also did something significant with women. The fastest growing group that's entering into the realm of homelessness are women with children, where it is even said, according to Homes for the Homeless based in New York, that the average age of a homeless person in America is a 9-year-old child. And so we're seeing the changing face of homelessness. And we decided that we were going to relocate to Caris House. So Caris House is the ministry of the Rescue Missions for women and children. So we moved from 533 West Washington in 2010. We moved away from a 42-bed facility to a 78-bed facility. At any one time, we have 31 children in our facility. We have a licensed registered daycare. And so not only are we addressing the needs of the woman at Caris House, but we're going to address the need for little Johnny and little Sally. And I don't know if you're aware, too, that a homeless woman and a child, they move on average 7 times a year. So with the McKinney-Vento Act, something that was passed 20, 30 years ago, we decided that we were going to make sure that if a child or a mother became homeless in a particular area and they were going to a particular school, that we're going to work with the Fort Wayne Community School or the East Annan Community School, and they're going to bring their buses to pick up our kids and make sure they can stay in the school in which they were enrolled originally. And so we have long lines of buses that pick up our kids first, and so as to remove the stigma, they drop our kids off last. But if you know anything about children, they want to invite their friends because they believe they live in the biggest house in the city of Fort Wayne. And so that's exciting. And so we're addressing the issue of the child. One of the things that's also different about us in Fort Wayne, the average shelter across America will take a child up to age 12. We will take a child up to age 18. Because as mom, as she's dealing with her trauma, I believe so the children are as well. And so many kids come to us, or young people, young adults, and they're rediscovering what it means to be a child, what it means to grow up. We actually have a youth pastor on our staff that addresses the needs. And, we have a staff that will even assess the children to see where their educational attainments are, where they are in reading and writing, etc. And we provide tutoring, we do music therapy and art therapy, and we provide them with all the resources. When they get off the bus, they come in and they can process their day. If little Johnny was sick, we come alongside mom, and we will accompany mom to meet with the teacher. So even with the parent-teacher conference, we'll empower the mom as to how do you talk to mom? How do you get the homework? How do you bring that home so Johnny doesn't get left behind? So at the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, we provide comprehensive care, we provide case management, and we give our residents all the resources that they need. The average person stays at the Rescue Mission 3 to 6 months. If you're looking for long-term program, that could be 12 months to 18 months. And we have a lot of folks who have come through. Each year, we serve about 1,700 unique individuals through the 3 residential programs. Our 4th house is a thrift store. I call it the Macy's of Thrift Store. It's at Coldwater Crossing. You just want to check it out. And so at the emergency end, we have Life House. Then long-term program for men is Restoration House. And for women and children, it's Caris House. And then Treasure House is our thrift store. And so that in a nutshell is who we are as the Rescue Mission. Our mission statement is still the same: to provide through the power of Jesus Christ a home for the homeless, food for the hungry, and hope for their future. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
And ask questions. Let me get the microphone for you. It's on. Yep.
So do you screen any of the people that come to your organization, or is it anybody who needs help can just come in, apply, and then they can be set up with a program?
Okay. And so the question was, do we screen those individuals who are coming to the Rescue Mission for service? When you come to the Rescue Mission, and if you're a man, at about 5:45, we serve a meal, and that ends at about 5:30. By 5:45, we're starting the intake process for those who are looking for a bed night or coming in to stay at the Rescue Mission. We will do a breathalyzer. And so we want to make sure that you're not under the influence. We also have the ability to do other drug screening. At night, our computer also will identify individuals who we will do random drug testing. And so an individual may be tested 3 times, if they're very fortunate, that night. And so we provide drug screening for those individuals who are staying with us. All right, so 0 tolerance for drugs and alcohol. We do the same thing at Caris House. Now, because we have children at Caris House, we do a little bit more detailed kind of a screening, and to make sure when you call in. So you can't just show up at Caris House and expect to get a bed. It's really, we don't have the emergency shelter. We're in the process of building one, but we don't have that. So a woman comes to us, she's going to be in our short-term program, and so they're screened in a phone interview. And so we try to do that to make sure that we provide a safe environment for the children that we serve. So when all is said and done, we screen heavily. When somebody comes to us for a meal, so anybody can show up for a meal 3 times a day. We have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If somebody is kind of acting out, if you will, we're able to isolate that person. And let's say they're under the influence, we do have sack lunches. And so nobody's going to go hungry, so we're able to provide a sack lunch for those individuals. But we try to create a recovery environment for those who are serious about real change and not allow others to cause things to trigger, any kind of behavior in them. Okay? Yes.
Could you tell us organizationally how you came to be from a board member to the CEO, and how you catalyzed the need to change what was going on and how that process went? Because you talked about employees who were no longer there and board members who were no longer there. So how did that process go of sort of changing how your organization was being run? Any issues you want to share with us about how that process took place? So
we were without a CEO at the rescue mission for 2 years. And our board had shifted from being a governance board to a management board. And so whenever you have a board that becomes a management board, wires are starting to get crossed. And so, it brought some amount of unhealthiness to the organization. And so being a part of that process, I struggled with whether or not I wanted to be the CEO. But they did a national search, and unfortunately, nobody was found. And one of the board members, who was an organizational psychologist, I remember the day he looked at me and he looked at the board and he said, "I believe the CEO is in this room. We've been praying for a CEO." And somehow the board thought that I could be that person. And so I prayed about it for 30 days. So between February 2008 and March, my wife and I, we prayed about it. And the board unanimously voted, and they extended a call to me. One of the first things I did was I tried to unite the team that existed, knowing that it was going to be a challenge. But it was important for me not to go in with the idea of wanting to change the organization. And so I had great conversations with my board. We didn't have a strategic plan at that particular time. And so we just identified 3 priorities that we were going to focus on. And so that became my mandate. And so we were looking at organizational integrity, organizational unity, and organizational effectiveness. So those became the 3 core values. So we allowed the core values then to dictate the decisions that we were going to make. The more I examined our mission statement and our vision statement, and the more I reflected on the people that we were serving, knowing that we wanted to address the root causes of homelessness, I had no choice but to make a drastic decision of saying to our board, "I need your support in bringing about change." One of the first books we read was Stephen Covey's book, The Speed of Trust. And so as we reflected on that together, it was important for us to really develop a trusting relationship between myself and the board. Now keep in mind, in any healthy nonprofit, when you have a strong board, the board has one staff, and that is the CEO. And so I am their only employee. So I was able to have direct interactions with them. And over time, we started to make some changes throughout the organization. Those were very, very uncomfortable. I leaned heavily on one of the board members who was a labor attorney, just to make sure that we were following Department of Labor rules and regulations in offering severances and making sure that we were terminating folks in a way that was in the interest of the organization. And we just went on this 3-year journey of wanting to bring health to the organization. There are times when I examined myself to see if I was the person that could take the organization to another level. So we also brought on consultants who would look me in the eye and would tell me the honest truth about how they assess the situation. But together we hung tough. We focused on what was in the interest of the organization, even if it meant saying goodbye to some dearly beloved staff, if they were not in line with our mission and our vision, and with a do no harm as it pertains to the men, women, and children that we were serving. We had to say goodbye, and those were painful decisions, to the extent that I went through a lot of moments of self-examination to make sure that I was not contributing to the ill health of the organization as well. And by the grace of God, here we are 10 years later with a healthy organization. We haven't arrived, but we are healthier, so to speak.
Can I follow up on that? I'm
Yes.
sorry. You mentioned a trip to New York City and to the
Yes.
mission. Could you tell us something or some things that you saw there that you learned that you wanted to apply and were able to apply that affected the change in the Formula Rescue
Yes,
mission?
so there were 13 of us, and it was funded by Following a Foundation. And so we went to New York, and we went to a place called Homes for the Homeless. And we wanted to see how Dr. Nunes and his team address the issue of homelessness. The first thing we noticed in the state of New York, and if you know anything about New York, it's illegal to be homeless in New York. And they have a system where they will gather the homeless and then they will send them to shelters, and they are paid a voucher. These shelters are actually paid to warehouse these homeless. So we decided in the city of Fort Wayne that we'll never warehouse the homeless. And while we had a more sanitized approach by providing 3 huts and a cot, we wanted to do something with the homeless. So if you come to stay with us, to what end? Are we just going to allow people to stay and just become a part of a revolving door? The second thing that I noticed was they had a very strict and strong organizational chart. They understood what it was to have an organization with clearly defined goals, core values, leadership, and a board that understood governance and not a board that managed. And so we came back and started to implement board development principles and practices. And one of our board members, she brought an incredible background to us. She was an executive director at a nonprofit, and she is a consultant. And so we were able to address the board. And once again, we implemented some strict principles. Number one was term limits. And so we brought term limits. So we addressed our bylaws. And we went and brought an attorney on and established a task force. And it was very difficult to go to board members and then to reset the timetable on term limits. And I remember the day when we actually went through the process where our board no longer looked like the board that brought me to the table. And so not only did we have staff changes, but we had board changes as well. And so I think any nonprofit, if you're going to pursue being healthy, having a healthy board is where you want to start. And that was the biggest thing I got from Homes for the Homeless. Strong board and strong leadership and a clear sense of direction as an organization. Mm-hmm.
So that though you don't have an emergency shelter for women, is that
Correct.
still going to be a plan in the future? And then what if there's a homeless father? Do you have any plans for like a family shelter?
Okay. So in reference to women and children, let's talk about that for a moment. Kira's House currently has 78 beds. And unfortunately, we're still turning away 35 to 50 women and children a month in the city of Fort Wayne because we don't have enough room. And there are no emergency shelters for women in the city of Fort Wayne. So the rescue mission, currently we're in a capital campaign, and we will be expanding Kira's House, and we're going to be adding an additional 30 beds to address that particular need. In the case of a homeless father that would come to us, we have great partners in our community, and so we work with Just Neighbors, Interfaith Hospitality Network. And let's say there is a woman at Just Neighbors, Women and Children. We have been known to connect with Dr. Terry Anderson, and we have been able to say to Terry, we're going to make space, for a woman and child that you have in your facility if you're full. And then we have a father and a child, and so we're able to place that father and that child. Often we have funding from the Thrivent Network, and so we're able to put up a father and children in one of the local motels. Our plans for a family shelter, we don't have any at this particular time, but we're going to continue to partner with Just Neighbors. We also work with our wonderful friends at Vincent Village. And so we're not the only show in town. We work with Vincent Village, and we're able to connect families to Vincent Village, and they do a wonderful job, and we work very well together. So it's all about collaboration. Okay.
So you mentioned that you want to put an end to the revolving door model, where people, they come in and then they come out. What are some of the steps that you take in order to make sure that people don't fall into that trap? And individuals who suffer from additional factors like addiction or withdrawal symptoms, how do you accommodate for that as well?
Very good. Thank you so much for asking. And so with us changing our model where we no longer ask the persons to leave. So when they come to the rescue mission, if somebody's dealing with chronic mental illness, we have partners at Park Center, Boyne Center, and Parkview Behavioral Health. And we will immediately connect that individual to those services. When those individuals have gained some stability, they're then welcomed back to the rescue mission. In fact, we claim those persons as our clients the moment we refer them to Park Center or Parkview Behavioral Health, and they will come back to us. We will even go ahead and pick them up and bring them back to the rescue mission. There are individuals who are dealing with serious medical issues. We now have a clinic, and so we're able to connect them. 97% of the people who come to us now have insurance. We have people who work with our nurses and work within as volunteers who help our people to get the necessary insurance, so they're able to address some of their medical needs as they come to us. We immediately put an individual in what is called a pre-phase program, but prior to that, we put them on what is called house support. So let's say an individual, he's coming straight from under the bridge, he comes to us, we welcome them, we're going to give them bed nights at the rescue mission, okay? After 2 or 3 days, if they're choosing program, because keep in mind, we're still in America, we can't force people to stay, so we provide them with bed nights. Then they come into our pre-phase program. We do the assessments, there's an orientation, and then there's a 2 to 4 week house support. That is where we say, sir, ma'am, even at Kira's House, you are staying with us, and we're going to work with you until we can help you to reset what's going on in your brain and just what's happening in your life, until you can think clearly. And we immediately assign a case manager. That case manager then is going to walk that person through a process of developing a program that is geared towards that individual. So it isn't a cookie cutter kind of a program where you come in and then we just walk you through the steps, and after a certain amount of days or months, then you have to leave. Individuals have been there 12 months, some 18 months, some 24 months, depending on the issue. So we do everything possible to make sure that they get the resources that they need. Okay? In fact, if an individual stays at the rescue mission, say 6 months, where they've completed the pre-phase and then phase 1, and then phase 2, which is a recovery program, if they're there 6 months or so, they have a 75% success rate, okay? And chances that they will maintain sobriety, and also they no longer are carrying out their destructive behaviors. So it's a pretty solid program is what they're going through. It is a recovery program, a treatment program at the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, just within 6 months. Okay?
Donovan, the people that work with the homeless and that I've known over the years struggle at times with cynicism and maybe getting a little weary sometimes of what appears to be manipulation occasionally. So how do you work with your staff to keep them from falling into that particular problem?
I'm going to have you give me an example of what you're talking about.
Well, just becoming very suspicious that people are not telling you the truth and are trying to take advantage of the system.
Very good.
A little bit like what you were talking about before in terms of going from one shelter to the next.
Yes. And so that's an excellent question. When you come to the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission, what is so cool about us is some of our staff or individuals who have been there. And so they kind of know all the tricks in the trade. And I think we do a lot in listening, to the individuals. And for some people, it takes 2 times, 3 times, 4 times to really get it. And we know those individuals, unfortunately, who are just taking advantage of the system. For instance, when it gets really cold, that's when our numbers increase. And so that tells you that people are responding, to the cold. We also have a wonderful time at Christmas at the Rescue Mission. I mean, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Sounds like a song, at Christmas. So our numbers increase. We have chosen, however, to deal with each person as being created in the image of God. And even if they were to come to us and they are wanting to be manipulative, because we're committed, to them as a human being, we're going to treat them with dignity. And the more we treat them with dignity, and the more we give them that listening ear, and the more they see the compassion, and they see us being the hands and feet of Jesus, and the more we reach out to them, there are individuals who will say to us, I thought I was just going to stay here just to get out of the elements. But now I want to do something real with my life. And so even with the sense of we could be cynical, we have chosen to treat them with the dignity, and it doesn't matter what you bring to the table. What really matters is what we bring to the table. And we're going to present to you the love of Jesus Christ. We're going to provide you with evidence-based therapy. We will give you the resources, and perhaps when you're sitting with a psychiatrist at Park Center or Parkview Behavioral, maybe something will click. Maybe as you give us an opportunity to refer you to a psychiatrist or to a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and as they do a med review or they do a psychological or a psychiatric assessment, or a social assessment, they're able to give you resources, and for the first time in your life, you're starting to think clearly, and then something else clicks. We also provide that sense of community. And I'll tell you, it is so hard to pull a fast one on the men and the women that we serve, because when you come into community, see, you immediately become a part of a cohort. If you're going to stay with us, we're going to make sure that you do work assignments. You know, in the past, we used to call those chores. You know, we call them work assignments because we're helping you with soft skills, because ultimately we want you to become a part of our vocational program. So if you're able to work, you're able to move out. It is within those small subset, those communities, that often people experience real change and accountability. And so it moves, the whole cynicism and the whole manipulation actually falls aside. And so we're able to address the real needs of people. So we say, come to us even if you want to manipulate us, but you will be confronted, you know, with a lot of things, especially be confronted by yourself. Yeah, good question. Mm-hmm.
Does your organization do any special events, let's say for Thanksgiving or Christmas, like soup kitchens or presentations or anything like that to help raise awareness?
Yes. So we do provide 3 meals a day. Since 1903, by the way, we're the only nonprofit, to our knowledge, that has never closed its door. You know, come rain or shine or whatever the season is, we have never closed our doors. It's 3 meals a day. Even if there's power outage, you know, if there's a blizzard, the Footman Rescue Mission is always open. But we also provide, you know, meals on those national holidays. So Easter, we're going to provide about 2,000 meals. You know, Thanksgiving could be 2,700 to 3,000, and Christmas maybe 2,300. So Thanksgiving is our largest meal. And the reason why we do that is we have created what we call a community of compassion. And we are a family. In fact, since I've been there the last 10 years, where do you think I have my Thanksgiving meals? The Rescue Mission. Where do you think I have my Christmas meal? At the Rescue Mission. My family, they'll come and we will sit and we'll have a meal together, because that's our family. And so being a community of compassion, we have also concluded that hope begins with a meal. And so if you will come out, and somewhere along the line I saw in Scripture where Jesus made the meal such a very special event. And so we feel as if we're breaking bread with Jesus when we're sitting with the least of these. And those are very, very important to us. We have volunteers now who are sitting at mealtime and eating with the poor and homeless that come to us. We do have some major awareness events that we do. We do something called One Night Without a Home, where we invite people from the community to come and stay outdoors. We had individuals this year, it was brutally cold, and so they slept where the homeless would sleep, and the homeless that were the overflow, they were now sleeping in our dining room at the Rescue Mission, close to all the snacks and so forth. So, and many decided to sleep outdoors, and they raised a lot of money for the Rescue Mission. We know it's just a little snapshot. You really don't get the experience of what it means to be homeless, but just an awareness of what many are going through at the Rescue Mission. Then we have these big events where we bring in national speakers, and we'll fill the Coliseum, you know, at least for us, that's 2,500 people, you know, in that little section, and raise $250,000 a night. Or May 4th, very important day. Not only is it my birthday, but we're going to have the Caris House Gala, and we're going to do a live and silent auction. So we do a lot of awareness events at the Rescue Mission. And a lot of groups do a lot of good things for us. Keep in mind, we have a $6.1 million budget, so we need a lot of friends to help us. We take $0 from the government as well. So we depend upon our community to support the ministry of the rescue mission.
Let me, I'll say it loudly, but that, I was going to ask about fundraising. Maybe you can talk to them a little bit about tips or principles of fundraising that you've learned.
And so we have a development team. When I started at the rescue mission, remember I started in 2006, a pastor coming to help with spiritual direction, became the CEO in 2008. I was sitting at the table eating, working with the men, being a big part of program between 2008 and 2010. Right now, at $6.1 million with 95 staff, 90% of my time is fundraising. So I'm the leading fundraiser for the Fort Wayne Rescue Mission. I do have 2 other major gift officers, and so our role is to identify our top 600 major donors. And so each of us, we have a portfolio, and we cultivate and nurture relationships with major donors. As far as we're concerned, it's all about relationships. And so I have relationships with many major donors in our community, and we don't target folks just for their money. We try to increase what we call a share of heart before we can get a share of wallet. Okay, so try to look at it that way. If I know what you're passionate about as a philanthropist, and if I can share our story with you, then it is my responsibility to share the rescue mission story and to be as authentic as I possibly can be. And then if your heart connects with what we do at the rescue mission, then you have what I call a transformational relationship. Okay? Too many folks, when you're doing fundraising or fund development, we approach it as a subtractional approach where, we know these folks, they have money. I've had people in our community who would say to me, you need to meet this person, you need to meet that person. And so I don't do that. I really try to see who do we have on our board. When we do linkage meetings is where we look at our list and we say, do you know these people? And so since they have relationships with these individuals, if they would connect me to those persons, then I can share the story, but they're the ones leading that conversation at that meeting. If I just went after somebody because I know they have money, that's subtractional, Or if somebody gives us money, we give them a plaque, that's transactional. What I really love is transformational approach to giving. And so I love it when a donor, there's one of my major donors who would say, tell me, what do you need today? Christmas is coming. How many families do you want me to adopt? How much do you want me to give this year? I mean, those are transformational relationships. And I just love that. So one of our wildly important goals as an organization in the fundraising piece is we would like, out of our 600 major donors, between now and the end of our fiscal year next year, we'd love for 25% of them to say that the rescue mission is one of their top 3 in terms of charities they support. And so we're very intentional, we are intentional, about doing that to really encourage folks to connect with what God is doing at the rescue mission. And if it's their passion, and then they will put their funds to it. We had one donor recently who gave us a significant gift. And he called me from Florida. And I'm not going to say who or how much he gave, but he said, Donovan, Jesus told me that I need to give you another $250,000. Okay? Now that's small in comparison to what he gave before. Okay? And so I love it when an individual says, my heart is with what God is doing at the rescue mission. My heart is with the poor and the homeless. It all belongs to God anyway. And Jesus told me to give you another $250,000. That's transformational. And so I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about the little boy who came with $1.79. And when he brought in his $1.79, his mom brought him in with his sister and himself. They came in, and I've told our front desk, I want to meet all those donors. When they come in with their $5, okay, or the $1.79. And so I remember inviting that little boy to come in, and he came into my office, and we're sitting, and we counted out that $1.79, and then I went over and I got him a receipt. And then I said, would you like to be on our mailing list? We can put you on quarterly. And he looked at his mom, and she said, yeah. So we have a little boy who is on our mailing list, and he gave his $1.79. So his little sister said, I want to be on the mailing list too, okay? And so we didn't put her on yet, you know, so she'll be a donor, and then we'll put her on the mailing list, okay? So, you know, we accept and receive the $1.79. I think of the guy who gave me $2.69, and he wrote on a piece of paper, I have you in my will, okay? And so when I saw the $2.69, then I looked him up and I said, I'd love to sit with you, because that's an opportunity for me to say to the donor, I want to make sure you have our name correct, you know, and if you need a determination letter, 501c3, that's our way of really developing that relationship, and then to educate him as to how to make sure that after he passes that the funds come to the rescue mission. I said, what is your favorite restaurant? And the gentleman said, I go to Subway. Yes, I go to Subway, not too far from a particular high school in this area, you know, right down here by Concordia. And I said, okay, I would love to meet with you. And so I met with him, and to my surprise, not only did he tell me about what he did and who he was, and we had a great conversation, he hands me a check for $1,000, okay? And I said, I'm not here to solicit anymore. And he says, but I want to see you in another month. And so another month I met with him, and he wrote another check for $1,000. Now, on his passing, the rescue mission will receive $500,000, okay? Started with a little note that's $2.69, I have you in my will. You know, so it's all about relationships. And so never ignore the small donor, okay? And welcome.
He gave you $2.69.
That was all he had. That was all he had, that he just wanted to get. Oh, that's because we put on the envelope, $2.68 will provide a meal.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes, for Thanksgiving.
He was testing you to see.
No, if I read it. No, now that you mention it, I think it had to do with, you know, how much meal that would be able to purchase, yeah, at Thanksgiving. Yeah, so you never know. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can I ask you, our culture seems to be more and more, as the evidence shows, more and more agnostic, more and more atheist in America, not just a lesser number of those who actually worship Christ as Savior, but even think of themselves as religious in some way. Does that impact you, or do you find that to be in some way an ironic blessing for what you do, or has that made it harder that you have Jesus as your mission as opposed to just, you know, background noise, where the elevator music nobody listens to, but they just expect it's there, instead of going to a concert where they're there to hear music? Do you feel that Jesus is becoming harder to be part of your mission in light of the sort of declining view of being a God-thoughtful place that America has sort of become?
That's a brilliant question. When we did our rebranding, it was important for us to communicate clearly who we were and who we are. And I remember thinking about our logo. And if you look at our logo in your little booklet, you'll notice that there is a cross there. And so as a team, we decided that we were going to keep the cross as the centerpiece of who we were as an organization. Okay? I remember an individual, and we brought secular, Christian, together as we were doing this whole rebranding and strategic planning and so forth. We had different stakeholders, and they said, we're going to be offensive. You will be offensive if you do the Jesus in your face kind of thing. And I said, that is not our practice. We're not a Jesus in your face. We have Jesus in our hearts, and we're going to love people, and we're going to be an organization that welcomes everybody. So the first thing that I would say to answer your question is, as a board and as a staff, we are very clear in who we are. While we are a 501c3 faith-based organization, we define ourselves as being a Christ-centered organization. At no point have we ever compromised who we were. We have turned down donations when individuals would ask us to tone down our message, and we have said, unfortunately, we're not able to tone it down because that's just who we are. I remember being mentored by folks from Brotherhood Mutual and Mark Robinson and Hugh White as they were mentoring us. And I mentioned their name for a particular reason. They looked at our logo and they said, this is who you are, and God will provide everything you need, but be true to who you are. So when you come to the rescue mission, and let's say you belong to another religious faith, we are not going to throw Jesus at you, but we're going to love you, and we're going to provide a safe environment for you. But please know that we do provide our chapel services every night for those individuals who are living or staying at the rescue mission. And so we humorously say it's our voluntary, mandatory chapel. But if you're a part of a religious group and you feel so hostile to Christianity, we're not going to ask you to sing the hymns. We're not going to ask you to pray the prayers, but we're going to ask you to sit, because that's how we operate as an entity, as an organization. When it comes to the general community, we have not compromised. There are corporations that will not give us a dime because, we are Christ-centered and we are faith-based. There was one in particular organization that came to us in 2010 and said, we're going to test to see, if as an organization you are as inclusive. And so we will not give to your chapel program and your religious program, but we will provide you with computers for your learning center, for your job. And it's interesting that as time progressed, they realized that we are more than just the faith component. I mean, that's who we are. But if you want somebody to get back to working, come to the rescue mission. We have individuals who have gone to Karis House, for instance, many persons. One young woman came to us from a county, northwest of us. And as she came and she was dealing with her own addictions, that young woman is now a nurse practitioner, okay? After finishing her Associate of Arts degree, her BSN, and she's now a nurse practitioner. And so we do provide services that go beyond just that micro, where they would try to pigeonhole us, or limit us to just being, this little Christian entity. We believe we are kingdom people that are here to change the world. And yes, we're Christian while we're doing it, okay? But we're not going to stop you from getting services. So we don't limit the people that we serve. If you're from any religious background, you can come to the Fulton Rescue Mission and receive services, and you don't have to profess faith in Jesus as we do. We would love for you to do that, but that is not anything that we require. Okay? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that you have like volunteers that come to help.
Yeah.
Now, in what aspect do you use their help?
Okay. So we have 2,300 volunteers at the Footwind Rescue Mission. And at any one time, we have volunteers serving meals. Okay. We have volunteers who act as grandmas and grandpas who can come and get down on their knees with the babies at Kira's house. We have those who will help in our learning center with financial literacy, preparing a meal, sorting clothes, doing anything that is necessary at our thrift store, and mentoring our children, coming over and just having fun. Ice cream socials, okay? We do that a lot. A lot of church groups come in and do ice cream socials on Sunday evening with women and children at Kira's house, music therapy, art therapy. So if you have a passion, and after you've gone on our website, therescuemission.net, where it says, how may I help? And then you register so you could become a certified volunteer. And if we're not offering what you have a desire to do, our volunteer coordinator and her assistant will be more than happy to talk with you and then connect you to a program person. And we're going to do everything possible to make it work. Okay? Because as long as we have a need and you can meet that need and we can bless you, then we're going to use you as a volunteer at the Rescue Mission.
Let me just say thanks again for Donovan for coming today. We appreciate the time you've spent with us. And hopefully the students have got a perspective on the unique world of the not-for-profit company, which I've been in for the last 21 years as well. So I have a great deal of respect for what Donovan does. So thank you very much again, and we'll have another one of these luncheons at some point this semester too, and I'll let the business school know when we've got that scheduled and who's coming. Okay? Thanks for coming today.
Thank you. Amen.
Les personnages dans mes tableaux, à me voir vivre en décroché, mes idées folles devenaient